How can you be supportive without putting too much pressure on your child or yourself? This is definitely something that many parents experience, feeling that they have to be perfect. And I would start by saying that you have to allow for imperfection for both yourself and your child, because imperfection will happen, and if you're prepared for that and you don't take it too much to heart or have it be something that weighs you down, then it's easier to move on and make things better. And I think a part of this is about like societal pressures and constructs around what a child should do, should be, and should achieve. You know, the shoulds that we get thrown at us as parents can make it really difficult to kind of go your own way and take your own path with your autistic child. So I think doing some personal work on putting to one side those expectations and having only the expectation that your child be the best and happiest version of who they actually are is a really good starting point. I think another important thing that can be really useful for an autistic child to be hearing as a message from a parent is that your love and support of them is not dependent on what they achieve or their successes, and that even if they fail, you're still 100% proud of them and there for them. And I think a part of that process is about how you handle those failures. So if one of my children experiences failure, then I tend to put that into perspective for them and talk about how we can move on from that, and how who they are and what their value is in the world is not dependent on them having achieved this thing that they've not achieved. And that's usually really successful in calming them down, but also calming me down about the situation. And I think an aspect of that is modelling behaviour around not always getting it right. So with the best will in the world, as a parent, I have not always parented my children perfectly. But when I haven't parented them perfectly, and perhaps I've spoken to them in ways because of my own frustration that isn't right, I always make sure that afterwards we have a debrief and I talk about how I'm not proud of the way that I behaved. I talk about maybe the reasons that led to me being in the mood. You know, I'd had a difficult morning, this had happened, that had happened, and that I'm sorry and that I'm going to work harder on not behaving in those ways in the future. And as well as giving my children a chance to process what's happened and hear that it's not their fault and not carry that with them, I've also given them an opportunity to see what it looks like when someone makes a mistake, deals with that mistake, and then moves on. I think it's good to consider how far you stretch your children, in terms of that we want to stretch our children towards achieving any level of independence that they might achieve by having them do things that are outside of their comfort zone, but we don't want to stretch them to the point where they are in anxiety, because then the experience is likely to result in a trauma response rather than something productive. And also, when you're considering those stretches, I think it's good to consider what they're capable of, what their capacity is, not what society is telling you they should be capable of at that age.